Hey, what's up guys? This is Krishna here. Welcome to this exciting tutorial on Cycles shader for Houdini 18.5 Pyro explosions. Now, since the release of 18.5, I'm sure you already know that the side effects have changed the material shader for Pyro workflows. Okay, not only that, if you go into Get, there is something called a content library, which I never noticed before. But it appears that it's been there for a while now. And if you go in here, you have several HIP files for free. And this is incredible because now you can just pick one of these and that's it, done, you know. It's all set up for you. Now you can spend your time working on aesthetics. So in this tutorial, I actually picked Fireball. I did download all of these and I rendered them all, and that's what you saw the output in the earlier video. Now, we're going to look at Fireball as an example in this one, all right? So check it out, and you know, I'm actually using Apprentice version of 18.5 because I have not transferred my 18.0 license yet. However, it did allow me to export BDB and render it in Blender, which I was a little surprised about, but hey, you know, Apprentice is a free version. If you are new to Houdini, it's a great way to start. And they obviously have indie license as well, which is affordable. So check it out. All right, so I'm going to show you the Houdini file. When I open Fireball, it just comes up with all of this. Everything is set up, you know, and obviously you won't have the cache because if I go into Fireball, I have actually cached this. But before I cached, this is the only node I added here, which is convert VDB, and I changed convert to VDB. I think the default is volume, so change that to VDB and then cache it out. And make sure you put in the extension .vdb because by default it is bgeo.se, which is Houdini native file. If you don't change it, it will not import, or you cannot import in Blender. Okay, so change to VDB, cache it out, and I'm going to show you the Blender file now. So that's my node network. So if I click on render, so there you go, there's the result, and that's the node network. We will go through that now. So I also want to show you Natron. Natron is an open source free software, and it is available on natron.fr. I will leave a link in the description. So I composited this explosion with a background because obviously, you know, you will require, or you may not, I don't know, but to composite the explosion, you know, in a background. All right, that's good. I will also go through this at the end. By the way, I'm no expert in Blender. I'm no expert in Houdini either. Okay, I'm just a guy who tries out things, and if it works out, and if I think it's worth sharing, I just put it out there. Okay, and I want to the shout out goes to actually Apply to Houdini Stephen Nipping's tutorial volumes 5 version 2.0 explosions. Now, if you want to understand how Houdini side effects' new Pyro material works in depth, I strongly recommend you go and purchase this tutorial and check it out because Steve really explains it in detail, and it's a fantastic course. And this tutorial on the cycle shader is nowhere related to this because my tutorial today is actually based on my own R&D, okay? And it is unfair, obviously, for me to just rip his tutorials apart and show it to you guys. That's not what I'm doing right now, okay? All right, good. So that's what that is, and I'm gonna go into Blender. I've already exported the files. The sim has been cached out. All right, so this is a brand new Blender scene. I'm gonna just delete this box and press Shift A, volume, import, open VDB. Going to Fireball, Files, Sim, VDB, and 1 to 120. By the way, I will leave a link in the description to download this project file. Okay, please support me by purchasing a file. However, if you've already purchased my Explosion with Trails tutorial series project files, you will get this one for free. Okay. All right. Good. So I'm going to change this to 120 because that's all the cache we have. Go into View, Frame All, and I'm going to set it to 50. All right, good. I'm going to press 0 on the numpad to check it, to get into camera view. Press N, go to View, Camera to View, Lock. Okay, and then I'm going to zoom out and then set up the camera a little bit here. Something like that, I guess. It doesn't matter. Something like that. Okay, let me just move to frame number, I don't know, 97, 90, 89. Okay, good. So that's actually going outside of the camera's view. So I'm just going to pull it in. And you see it's cut, all right? So that's to do with the camera clipping. If I press N, you have this option right here to change the clipping. But the problem is, no matter what you do here, it's not going to change the thing here, all right? I found that very confusing. But anyway, as I said, I'm no expert in Blender, okay? So I figured out that if I click on camera and go into camera, there is that clip setting. If I change this to 1000, there you go. It appears now. All right, good. So I'm just going to slightly move this. Okay, good. Press N again and uncheck that. All right, good. I'm going to split the view or the pane into two. Just move this onto this side. Zoom in a little bit. I'm going to change this to shader editor and click on Fireball and make sure you've got all of these. So we have density, flame, scatter, temperature, and velocity. Okay, and I'm going to click on new for the material, and Blender comes up with this principal, volume shader, and a material output, which is good. So I'm going to go jump right in. So we know that we have these 5 elements here. So I'm going to use 3 of these. One is density, scatter, and temperature. And first of all, I'm pressing Shift A and attribute. So I'm going to bring all 3 elements in, all right? Density, oops, density, and copy, paste, temperature, copy, paste, scatter. And I'm going to add a math node. I'm going to change it to multiply and get the factor into here. And that means that why I'm doing this is so that they can have individual multiplier for them. Okay, each one of this will have their own individual multiplier. All right, good. So I'm going to concentrate on density first. All right, so if I plug in this value into density, which is the density strength, because the attribute itself is already called here, all right? But I'm calling it in as an attribute because I want to, I'll show you later, okay? But for now, let's click on this render icon. And it comes up with nothing. And that's because if I go into this camera icon, render properties, render engine needs to be changed to cycles. And I'm going to change the device to GPU because I have a GPU. And render itself, I'm going to change it to 64 because that's good enough. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of that. I'm going to pull this out a little bit. All right, now let's click on render. Nothing comes up still. Okay, let's just figure out what's going on. I'm going to move it to 50. Oh, that's okay because yeah, there you go. So something's coming out. Obviously, I need to change the lighting. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this down a little bit. And I'm going to set the light up and come back. Okay, I'm going to change the light to sun. I'm going to change the strength to 10 because it's way too much otherwise. All right, and I'm just going to rotate this facing our explosion. All right, Good. I think that's set up now. All right. Click on Fireball again. Now you can see that. That's good. But there is no emission coming through at this moment. Okay. That's fine. And let's plug in temperature into emission strength. Just going to change this to 1000 so that you can see how dense it can get. All right, good. I'm going to change the color of the density slightly. Darker. Yeah, okay, that's good. So emission strength. There you go. You can start to see it's coming through. All right. We're going to come back to density shortly, all right? So I'm just going to pull these down. Obviously, emission strength relates to emission color. If not, you would be using black body, intensity, and tint and whatnot, all right? In this case, I'm not using that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use scatter to drive the color, okay? So I'm going to put in a color ramp. There you go. And connect this into the factor. And I'm going to leave, I'm going to put in the color to emission color. There you go. All right, good. And that's because it's too low. I'm going to change it to 100. Yeah, you can already see things are showing up in the correct place. Places. All right. So I'm going to leave the white at the end and the black at the end here. All right. And I'm going to create 2 new items. And the first one, I'm going to just drag it along to this side and make it a little bit yellowish, bright. Yeah, something like that. I think that's good enough. And that one, I'm going to drag it up and I'm going to make it orangey. And I'm going to add another one here and I'm going to drag it brighter and make it red-ish, sort of, you know. Obviously, your explosion will completely depend on how you color it, okay? So it's important you color this right. So I'm just going to pull this onto this side. I'm going to make it darker. Yeah, I think that's good. That one, I'm going to pull it to the left also. Yeah, that looks good for now. But if the render doesn't look as good, I will actually get the values from my original, okay? And I'll plug it in here. Right, so that's set up now. Okay, thinking about it, I actually went ahead and got the values from my original. So I'm just going to plug that in here, okay? So it looks like I only needed 2 of these, all right? So I'm just going to plug them in. Get rid of those and get rid of that as well. I'm going to create a new one and move it to the side. So it's at position 0.83, this one. So 0.83. And for this one, the color is RGB, red is 1, and green is 0.413, and blue is 0.103. 0.413, blue is 0.103. Okay, good. That's set up. And for this one, come on, it's at position 0.05, 0.05, and red is 0.462 and 0.025 for green. 0.462 and 0.025, and blue is 0. Okay, good. So now we've got that set up. Let's move on. So as you can see, I'm just going to go back into density again. As you can see, the density is all the way down here. I mean, that's good and not good at the same time, all right? So what I'm going to do is, what we want to do is bring down the density where the temperature is high, okay? Right now, You would only want to see density where the temperature is low, because that's where the smoke is generated after the burnout, okay? Okay, but also I noticed that this looks really washed out, so I'm gonna pull this down a little bit, maybe. And lower it down, something like that. Okay, that's good. All right, so I'm going to create a color ramp here. Oops, no, I don't want to do that. I'm just going to pull this down and pull it up. Right, I'm going to connect the temperature into the factor of that color ramp. And I'm going to reset this to default value, so you get the alpha, okay? So, and what I'm going to do is, now I'm going to add a math node again. I'm going to multiply this with the alpha coming in, and you can see already things have changed. All right. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that, because if you now move this slider, you can see how much of density is coming in. All right, so that's good. That's us done with the density technically. So if you were to make this 10, you'll see that much, and 1,000 is what I'm going to go for now. Okay. All right. Right. Let's move on to the actual strength of the explosion. All right. So I want to bring it in such a way. I know that the scatter has a lot of features that I want to use to drive the emission strength. So I'm going to add in. I'm going to copy this multiply. I'm going to paste it. Did I paste it? Oh yeah. All right. So I'm going to put it up here, and I'm going to multiply it with this here. All right. That way you can see everything has disappeared. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another math node here, which will then set it to multiply, and I have a separate control over this. There you go. So now if I reduce this to 1, you get that, and reduce this to change it to 10, you get that. So I'm going to keep it at like 100 for an example, or 1,000 maybe. Yeah, that looks better. That's good. All right, perfect. And you see this clamp here, right? If I clamp this, suddenly you see a slightly different result. And that actually works out better for me. The thing is, if I change this to 1, there you go, again. So I'm going to keep it at 1,000 and clamp it, all right? So that's looking good. All right, finally, I'm going to add one more. Now this trick, when I sent the original file to Steve about the shader I did for Blender after watching the tutorial, he asked me whether I used Fresnel. I said no at that time, but during this tutorial I figured out, well, why not? So I wanted to say that because obviously the idea came from him, all right? So I'm going to put in another math node here, and I'm going to set this to multiply. I'm going to add a Fresnel, and I'm going to connect it to here. And suddenly things look much different. All right. And if you Google search fire Fresnel for an explosion or a fire, it ranges from 1.44 to 1.46. So I'm going to change it to 1.44. If you change it to 0, obviously you'll get the same result. 1.44 is what I'm going to change it to. Okay, so that's good. So here's the beauty. See this number here, the scatter multiplier? Now, if this number drives the color ramp, okay? So for example, if I were to change this to 1,000, you see the colors are pushed towards this side. And if I were to reduce this, the colors are pushed towards this end, all right? So that's important to understand. All right, good. I'm going to leave it at 100. Okay, I'm going to leave it at 100. That's good. I'm going to clamp this, all right? so that, let's see here. Yeah, 1.44. I guess you don't need to, but if you were to go way too up with this one, it'll clamp itself, all right? All right, good. Maybe it's about time I save this, so just give me 1 second. All right, I finally saved it. Okay, good. So let's just, I'm gonna switch this off before I move my frames because Blender seemed to crash sometimes. Okay, so I'm just gonna check what's happening at frame number 20, for example. Yeah, there's some details still left in there, which is good. Actually, let me just try it and move it. Oh, that's working. Okay, that's good. All right, so that looks pretty good. All right. That's pretty much the shader done, all right? So if I go to frame number 30, for example, if you notice that this red coloring here, if you don't like that, then what we can do is technically that's we can use the temperature to drive that down a little bit. So basically, just like the way we did with density, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a math node, and let's say I will put it in here and multiply it with this alpha here. But we need another math node again and put it in here to drive that, all right? So if I change it to multiply, and if I change this value to 50, so if I were to select these two elements and press M, you see how you've reduced that a little bit, all right? Oops, not that. Mute and unmute. So you've drive that down a little bit, okay? But I'm not gonna do it, all right? But you can use that if you want. I'm just gonna connect this back in here. All right, perfect. And that's the shader done. Technically, I think. Yeah, I covered all of it. Okay, I'm gonna do a little render and come back. All right. Okay, the rendering is now done. It took approximately 15 minutes. I rendered 60 frames only, okay, because it was enough. So I also exported it as an MP4 video. Here is the result. All right, so don't worry about this this little black things that are coming up. That's just to do with the VLC player. Okay, all right, good. I'm just gonna exit this, but I want to show you what I did before the render. I forgot to mention. So I obviously changed it to 64. You need to change this to much higher divisions because I noticed that there were some noise, but I didn't use any noise reduction at all. So that's that. So I went into film and enabled transparent so that I get alpha. And then I went into the passes and disabled Z and enabled volume direct and emission. All right. And it's important to disable the Z because for some reason, if you have it enabled, the multi-layer AXR doesn't seem to work very well. All right. So there's, so that's the things that I wanted to do. But I also forgot to do the trails. Okay. So I'm just going to show you that right now for you. All right, before I show you that, I'm just going to save this file as a different file because I need to get rid of that cache, all right? All right, before I delete the fireball, I'm going to enable this fake user on this material. I'm going to change this material to volume, enable the fake user, and I'm going to delete it. Good. Now press Shift A again, and I'm going to import that VDB that I created just now, all right? Right, so there's the VDB sim that I cached out, and this is about 90 frames. All right, so here is the trails, and this is using the shelf tool called Ground Explosion, I think. So that's good. So I'm gonna go ahead and select our volume here for this, and I'm gonna render this. Right, so you notice that there are no trails, it's gone. All right, so to get the trails back, first thing I want to do is this. All right, so I'm going to put in a math note here, and I'm going to say, let's see if I add in a 10. Maybe not there, right? Yep, right there. So I'm going to put an add note here. So the minimum is going to be always 0.5, all right? So now you can see the density coming off there, all right? So let's see here if I change it to 1. So there it is. So that's pretty good. I'm going to clamp it just in case. If I reduce this to, increase it to 1000, increase it, there you go. So you can see that, right? But the thing is, you can't see, I mean, this is a low res sim that I exported, okay? So that's why it looks kind of bad. But if I were to change this to 1, or 10 for that matter, so you cannot really see the highlights that are coming in. And that's because, if you remember, in this sim, if I go in here, you see there is trail temperature, which is an additional element that has come in. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use that in here, right? Trail underscore temperature. And black body intensity, I'm going to increase this to 1000. There you go. It's starting to appear now, all right? So if I were to go to 50, oh, don't crash on me. All right, there you go. Perfect. So that shows up. So that's how you get the trails for, you know, any explosion that contains trails. If you have a better technique, of course, go ahead and use that. But I just quickly put this through, okay? So I'm just going to change this to 1, because anything you add here will have an impact on what we did previously. So it's important that you take care of this value carefully. All right. So that's all that is. So it's done, and the render is done. So I'm going to move on to Natron now and start doing it. All right. So there's Natron, the original file. Okay. So I'm just going to explain what's going on here, right? So in fact, I'm just going to do a brand new scene, right? Okay. So I'm going to say new project. Okay, good. I'm going to press tab and put in a read node. And not that one. I want apprentice tutorial render and that one. Okay, so we've got the 60 frames now. That's good. Nothing shows up, and that's because I need to connect this. Press 1 and it'll connect. There you go. Something is showing up, which is good. By the way, Natron is like Nuke. So it's, you know, I mean, I wouldn't say it is Nuke, because Nuke's got a lot more features than Natron, but Natron is free, so why not? Right. Okay. So I've exported 2 passes. Okay. So I'm going to extract them. All right. So first one is I'm going to extract emission. This is going to be emission, and I'm going to copy this and paste it here, and I'm going to double click on it, and then volume direction. I'm going to press 1. There you go. So that one's that, and that one's that. All right. But I'm also going to bring in the original combine layer, because if I click on this one, and if I click here, where is it? Oh no, it's not. It's pre-multiplied. There you go. So so there you got the alpha there, right? But if you look in here, there is no alpha. And that's important to understand because if you want to composite against a background, you need alpha, obviously. All right, so the first thing we want to do is bring that alpha. So I'm going to put in a shuffle. And I think it's A goes there and B goes here. And double click, and I'm going to say alpha is coming from our combined layer. All right, now if I connect this, there you go, we got the alpha. That one and the alpha. Okay, good. So I'm going to do the same for our volume. So connect it there. Oops. Connect it here. Double click. Yeah, that's the one I need. Okay, there you go. No alpha. Now there is alpha. All right, perfect. So we have our emission and our volume direct. The idea is to put in a glow for our emission layer. Oops, not that one. Come on. Select that and then type in glow. It will automatically connect after your selected node. All right. So I'm going to connect that. And there's the glow that has come into play. All right. So I'm just going to adjust this a little bit. Maybe make it better, whatever, you know. Like that, I guess. So you need to choose pre-multiplied because if not, it won't work. So all of these little tricks you need to know. If not, it'll just stay within the alpha. All right, good. So as you can see, it's pretty you know, exposed and washed out. So I'm going to put in a color correct node here. In here, I'm going to go in and I'm going to reduce the gain to a reasonable amount so that it looks pretty good. Remember, this is frame number 37, so if you were to look at it at 20, it's going to look even more blown out, right? So that's why it's important. So I'm going to put it down to 0.1, so we do have some details, and it looks pretty, like hot, you know? Pretty hot. All right, good. You can play around with this. I mean, if you change the isolate highlights, you'll get less, and you can look at the glow map preview here as well. So I mean, you can work with it. It's a pretty good tool. I'm just going to save this before I lose it. All right, so that's good. And I'm going to copy this color correct. I'm going to paste it here and for this one also, just in case if we need it. And I'm going to put in a merge node. Oops. Merge node. I'll connect the A there, B here, and press 1. And I'm going to say change the operation to plus. All right, I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to put in a checkerboard. And I'm going to copy this merge and connect that there and there, B to that one, and press 1 again. So there it is. But you notice something weird, that it is actually transparent, and you wonder why that is. If you go into color correction, it took me a long time to figure out this, all right? But I still may not be right about this, but anyway. So that's not it. Wait. Okay, so first of all, this merge is not a plus because it should be over. And it should be the other way around. That's okay. There you go. That's better. Okay, so that's how it looks right now. So I'm going to try and work things out here, right? So we definitely do not want alpha in our color correct node, okay? So let's go into glow. That's fine. Merge. I think we need to uncheck B channel because we're keep adding the alpha channels. So we only need one alpha channel, okay? And I think either one will work fine, but we just need one. All right, so I'm just going to leave it at A channel. All right, and now you can see it's all working fine. All right, so the pre-multiplication and all of these alpha does matter a lot. Okay, so it's important to understand that. Okay, so I'm just going to run this now and see what goes. Okay, it's done now, so check it out. Yeah, that looks pretty cool. So the matter of fact is that if you think it is too hot or something like that, I mean, you can always adjust the glow. And for this one, in fact, I adjust the saturation a little bit. I lowered it a little bit, so it's not that much. And you can reduce the, let's see here, gain in here as well. So if you want, you know. But you can play around with this. As I said, I'm just going to leave it at 0.5. And finally, this RGB is the workspace color. Okay, it's important to understand that, all right? Because if I put in a node here called, let's see here, color OCIO, open source color IO, I think it's called. So if I change this from linear color space to sRGB or Rec 709, come on, don't disappear on me. Let me save this before I forget. There you go. I just enabled GB render. It looks significantly different. So if I disable that, there you go, that one. So maybe I should put this up here actually. Let me see here, OCIO color space. There you go. I will change this to Rec and enable GPU render. It looks completely different to how it was before, okay? And uncheck on pre-multiply. All right, so color space is very important, and you can either output as Rec 709 or sRGB, whatever you want, or even linear if you want further post. Regardless of what you choose here, if I were to put in a write node, and I say write, okay, just go in there, whatever, do it with a, that's good enough. If you look at this write node, you have your own color space here. So input color space is linear and file color space is sRGB, okay? So that'll be your output. So make sure that whatever you choose here, so let's say if you choose to go with Rec 709 here, you need to change this linear to Rec 709. And the output will differ depending on your selection, okay? So I'm just gonna export this out. In fact, before I export it, I just want to mention that if you go and change this from JPG to MP4, everything changes here, okay? And you can choose what you want, and all of the formats are here. It's a pretty good renderer, to be honest. So I'm just going to render this out, and I'm going to come back. So it's rendered now, and here's the result. Okay, pretty good. I think it's it looks pretty cool. Right, so I also want to show you something else, right? So if I were to not do this checkerboard thing and connect it directly here, it's important to note that there is no the ugly outlining thing, okay? And that is to do with this pre-multiplication and whatnot. So if you follow the steps exactly as I mentioned here, you won't have that problem. But if you missed anything, just watch the video again and try it out. And one more thing is that I'm using Natron because it's very powerful and it's open source. Of course, I can use After Effects. Again, you can use the same techniques and you'll get pretty much the same result. But again, with After Effects, it is very important to use the linear color space when you import the EXR, and the output color space does matter, as well as the 8-bit, 16-bit, 32-bit data. All of that matters a lot. I just want to mention one more thing. The multi-layer EXR For me, it doesn't seem to work in Houdini Compositing network, okay? But I don't know why. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. That's why I'm not showing it. All right, so that's the end of the tutorial. In fact, before the end of the tutorial, I just want to put in another note here, okay? So let me see here. One of my favorite notes, I always use this in most of my tutorials. So film convert nitrate. So before and after, you see a significant difference between the two, all right? So if I were to select that, there you go. And in here, you can select what you want, and I usually go for a Super 35, and let's see here, VD. It gives you a little bit more punch, and you can choose to change your profile if you want. Like I only have Canon 5D Mark III profile, to be honest, nothing else. But yeah, or you can just leave it as they are, okay? Even without any changes here, it just looks pretty cool, I think. All right, so that's the end now, I promise. So I hope you liked it, and I hope it was useful. If you liked it and it was useful, please give me a thumbs up, share, comment, subscribe, and please do not forget to click on the bell icon for notifications. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.